One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
So, welcome to Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool with myself, Ashley, and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. How's things this evening?
Very good, very good. And we are joined this evening by James and Paul, who have been on previous shows. Now, Ed, why is that? Why is that?
Well, I think it's sort of nearing the 23rd of November, which is the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And first thought was, let's do an episode celebrating the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And I thought to myself, everyone's going to be doing that. So I thought we'll do an episode celebrating the 40th anniversary of the 20th anniversary of Doctor Who. And we'll talk about the 1983 classic, The Five Doctors. And that's why these two gentlemen have been invited on board.
There is a place.
Ah, the black secret at the heart of your Time Lord paradise?
The Time Lords fear.
Somehow it is draining energy from the Eye of Harmony.
And it is about to be
to an extent which endangers all Gallifrey.
awoken.
You attract trouble, Doctor. You always did.
I am being diminished, whittled away piece by piece.
Danger! Doctor! Danger! Mistress!
Ah! Hello, Sarah Jane. We're on Gallifrey, in the death zone.
We must know what is happening there.
You shouldn't be here at the same time with him.
We're just going to have a bit of a chat, really, because my contribution will be, yeah, it was really good. I'd probably give that an 8 or something like that. On IMDb, it says such and such. Whereas you guys are massive Doctor Who fans. In fact, we are joined by, I think, with Paul, I think we're probably joined by about 3 of the Doctors anyway.
Well, there I was, punching on the cam, and I suddenly find myself in the time vortex with you, marvelous gentlemen.
So what we've decided, actually, James, Ed, should we leave the Zoom conversation and Paul can just bring himself really for the next half an hour or so. So Ed, over to you.
Okay, so I can remember back in 1983, this being a big thing. It being a huge thing that there was going to be, and there was this wonderful 20th anniversary celebration being brought out by the BBC, and it was shown, if I recall correctly, as part of Children in Need. My younger self watching it was like, oh my God, it's going to be brilliant. Tom Baker's going to be back, because the show was still so much under the shadow of Tom's 7-year reign that, I didn't appreciate Davison at the time. It was just, he wasn't Tom Baker. So I just thought, I want Tom Baker back. And we sort of got him for a couple of moments with a couple of scenes input. And then he didn't really take part. I mean, I know now what the real world reasons were for that. But at the time, I don't think they could have done it any other way. They had to incorporate him because he was such an amazingly big part of the show. But if he didn't want to appear, what else could they do? But I just remember at the time just being really, really excited, watching it on Children in Need, absolutely loving it, thinking it was one of the best things I'd ever seen. It's probably the same feeling as sort of the youth got today when they saw the Avengers Assemble. It was that sort of, wow, feeling like this is a once in a lifetime. And how lucky am I to be alive in 1983 to be able to see this? I was watching it again yesterday for revision. I don't think I needed revision because I was sort of saying the lines before everyone's seen it. I've seen it that many times. It's such a comfort story. It's such a, it's a classic, not just because all the Doctors are in it, but I mean, it gives you a lovely warm feeling inside. All these brilliant lines in it, like Davison's, like Alex, I believe 3 impossible things before breakfast. And then when he escapes from the Cyber, he's just so nonchalant, he goes, sorry, mustache. And you've got the brilliant bits in there, the plot as well. Like sort of the three Doctors 10 years prior add a lot to the Time Lord mythology and the Time Lord lore, whereas with the three Doctors, which surprisingly, James and I see me on Twitter, I just watched about 20 minutes ago with the new Tales from the TARDIS, and I've only just stopped crying. But
yeah.
Like 10 years prior to that, the whole thing of Omega was introduced as a character in the Time Lords. This one focuses more on sort of the reign of the Time Lord Rassilon and introduces Death Zone and the Dark Times on Gallifrey, which is another really, really interesting, which really builds on the lore. So, you know, as a celebration for the general public, fantastic. For fans, those extra little bits of building blocks of lore, absolutely brilliant. Watching it, as I'd say, my little self was disappointed Tom Baker wasn't in it. Watching it as my adult self, I'm sorry if I offend you on this one, Paul, but I think perhaps Tom may have dominated a bit too much because Tom was such a presence. The focus would have been Tom, and the other Doctors might not have got as much of a look in as they did in this one. So I'm going to hand. I've said quite a bit now. I mean, like Ash says, why use one word when you can use 300? But I will hand over to Paul, I think, with his thoughts on Tom Baker's non-appearance and how that actually came about.
Well, I was too busy being a waxwork in Madame Tussauds, and my repeat fees were too much for the production. Well, yes, because we're talking 1983. I mean, I was 13 when this went out, and it's 40 years ago. I can't believe. And it's one thing that struck me actually watching it the other day, how many people have actually passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, virtually everybody in it has passed away, apart from the main cast and a couple of the others. Amazing, yeah. And I remember the build up to it. I remember the build up to Longleat, all the appearances on Saturday Superstore and Breakfast Time, K9, affirmative, master, and the Daleks. I remember, frantically trying to buy a proper videotape to record it. And it was just amazing. 20 years. And it's actually incredible to think what the program achieved in those 20 years, going from the early days of black and white with William Hartnell, and we're here with Peter Davison now. And nowadays, it doesn't sound that much, does it? 20 years, but they virtually covered everything in those 20 years. But it's interesting. I mean, I like the way Terrance Dicks incorporates a lot of the ideas from the war games, with the Time Lords and the capturing alien beings, putting them on another planet. And of course, the best thing is that it was filmed down the road in Mount Turog and all the locations down there. I mean, John Pertwee bombing down the road in Bessie, great balls of fire. So I've gone back to do all the locations. I've even visited the rose bushes that Richard Hurndall went through in Class Brondanu, and it feels really authentic. I think that's the thing with having. Although it's funny how Richard Hurndall does actually take on the role of William Hartnell quite well. I don't know whether I know we had William Hartnell at the beginning. One day I shall come back with an even better wig, But and there are so many elements in it. I think that's the thing, trying to get it into a workable story. And it's a shame, I think, that they didn't really make that much out of Susan. Coming back into it. And one of my favorite scenes in it, actually, and I'm just watching it now, actually, is the scene where she meets the Doctor on Gallifrey, and we think it could be Skaro, and the Dalek comes around the corner, and I just love that scene. That really captures the 60s to me. Exterminate, exterminate. It's very dangerous to fire energy weapons in an enclosed space. Yeah, brilliant. I love that. I love that. And I love all the introductions to the Doctors. Patrick Troughton, not allowed. Me, I'm allowed everywhere. You know, and John Pertwee, as I say, great balls of fire. You know, Tom on the cam. And also a personal thing for me is that I was at Cambridge University and I've done all those locations and all the punting on the cam, doing all the lines. You know, so with it being filmed in Manturog down the road and the Norwich Quarry, Plas Brondanu, and Cambridge, well, you know, it's a home from home for me. You know,
just picking up on that, guys. Though when I was watching it, I have to sort of find that the way that they're bringing the Doctors in was quite funny. So Patrick Troughton turns up. I need to see the Brigadier.
Hello. We didn't get your story. He froze when he started telling it.
Oh right, okay. I was wondering what the hell was happening then. I was thinking, I know I'm boring, but Christ, it was like one's like just frozen in time.
Well, you think you've got problems frozen there. I'm frozen in the time vortex in this story.
All I was going to say, I just felt it quite comical. You know, like Patrick Troughton turns up, I must see the Brigadier. Then he goes out the door, puts his coat on, and goes, "Oh well, must go." and then when John Pertwee turns up, and Elizabeth Sladen, what's her name?
Sarah Jane.
Sarah Jane, beg pardon. Such a great fan. No, but Sarah Jane's there, and she has to get pulled up by a wire on Bessie. And I'm thinking, it's just like, this is. But to be fair, John couldn't really mess up his suit, could he? To be fair, and make the most of all the props.
So Paul Liz Sladen was victim of some very dodgy editing all the way through that show. I mean, it's not just the infamous roll down the slight incline of the hill that she needed to be dragged up with a rope. It's that horrendous stutter and stop as the time picks her up at the bus stop, where she runs and stands still in a strange pose. Oh, bless you! She must have upset the editors on that story. I don't know why they treated her like that. But yeah, so much fun. This story. And I'm thinking, the more you think of it, you can't think of anyone but Terrance Dicks who would have been able to juggle so many competing and conflicting factors and constantly changing cast and be able to produce a workable story. I mean, there's not just Tom. You read the original drafts. I mean, he picked it up late because Robert Holmes was supposed to write it, I believe, and was struggling to produce a story. And then J&T reluctantly went to Terrance Dicks because for whatever reason he didn't like using Terrance Dicks, and he churned out this piece of work that originally looked completely different to how it transcribed on TV. I mean, I think the Brigadier was supposed to be with John Pertwee. Jamie was supposed to be with the second Doctor the whole way through. Tom was obviously supposed to be there. I think you're right, Ed. Yeah, it's disappointing when I was a kid watching this. You think, oh, where's the fourth Doctor? Where's Tom Baker? If he'd been there, it would have been the Tom Baker show. I think Tom just naturally dominates whatever he is in, just by even without meaning to. Just being Tom Baker means he's going to be the center of attention, and I do think it works better without that kind of bombastic focal point. It's much better as an ensemble piece, I think. But yeah, I can't think of any other writer, certainly of classic who could have pulled together so many competing and conflicting factors, and I say a constantly changing cast as actors' availability came and came back again for a little bit. And okay, you were a main character, now you're going to have 5 minutes as a kind of a ghosty thing in the corner, and we'll kind of brush over all the continuity aspects of wiped memories and all the rest of it, and produce something that's so absolutely enjoyable. I suppose indirectly that whole casting problem or scheduling problem was the forerunner of the old season 6B theory, wasn't it? Even before the two Doctors were how does the second Doctor know what happened at his trial, yet he's still wandering around? Sorry, diverting off for a little fan alley that way. But yeah, I've just got to give huge round of applause to Terrance Dicks for even managing to pull that together at all, but making it so enjoyable.
And coming up with probably one of the best action sequences in Doctor Who, the Raston warrior robot.
Oh, yes.
Who needs Terminator style special effects when you've got Keith Hodiak in a body stocking and a cycle helmet?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, the most perfectly firm butter killing machine.
Terence Hicks. And of course, that was actually directed by JNT, wasn't it? That whole sequence, the Cyber Massacre. We have found the ones from the TARDIS.
Oh dear. So. Yeah. Yes, the strangely emotional Cybermen.
Yeah. James, you sort of alluded to the constantly evolving script. Something at the back of my addled old brain here there's a memory there. You gentlemen probably know better than me that it was originally Robert Holmes' one was originally called The Six Doctors. Is that right?
Yeah, was it supposed to be like a robot first Doctor or something? Something along those lines. I used to know more about it, but it's gone the way of all flesh.
I was just going to ask, what does everyone make of Richard Hartnell's performance in this? I mean, were you bothered it wasn't William Hartnell, or did you just let it slide for the story? Or?
I enjoyed it, personally speaking, and I think the first time I would have seen this, I was tiny, so I must have been on video or something. It was probably my first experience of the First Doctor. So, as a kid, it mattered not a jot, dear boy. He just was there. The only thing looking back that really bothers me about it is that he has grey pants instead of check ones and those fingerless gloves, which for some reason really wind me up. I can't explain why, but I think he does a good job. I mean, Richard Hurndall, he was an established and very good character actor. He turned up. This is the role you're going to play. And he played it. He played it well. I can't find fault in that performance. And something you mentioned earlier, the thing that annoys about the whole, I suppose, First Doctor Susan element is not that Susan's necessarily wasted, because it's hard to find good things for everybody in that story to do, but the almost total lack of reaction between the Fifth Doctor and Susan. It's like, oh yeah, here's my granddaughter back, who I've not seen for hundreds of years, and we'll just stand and politely smile and nod at each other with our hands firmly in pockets. I recall Caroline Ford saying in an interview some time back that JNT hadn't wanted the reference to her being the Doctor's granddaughter in there, didn't want to refer to her as granddaughter or call Doctor grandfather, because he didn't want to give the audience the idea that the Doctor had ever had sex, because it's a family show, and she laughed out loud at the time and said, if that's the condition, I'm not coming back. So he finally acquiesced. But knowing JNT and how he was about Peter Davison in particular, no arms around the companions and no hugging or affection, that's probably why they were kept very far apart and very, no reaction to the point of barely being bothered by each other's presence, which was a shame. You diehard fans, and looking back now, we're all diehard fans. You'd want to see some kind of emotional reaction there and some kind of plot development, but it was not to be.
It's a shame with all the other cameos in it, really, like Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury, and Caroline John, and Richard Franklin. They only get a couple of minutes each. And it's a shame that we don't see more of them in it. But I suppose it's just the script and the way they had to incorporate a lot of the elements from the past 20 years.
I mean, for me, the only Hartnell I'd seen was on the Five Faces season. So I'd seen An Unearthly Child. Are we allowed to talk about that? It's will we get soon talking about it?
I just had an email with a cease and desist order pop up.
And also the Three Doctors were the only sort of exposure I'd had to Hartnell's Doctor. So someone else playing him again, like you, he was just the First Doctor. He got the mannerisms right. He came across, and there's one particular line that he says makes you think he came across as quite sinister. Well, one of us has made it. I wonder what happened to the other. He comes going, ooh. what I have found, again, watching it with age, and again, I know watching the Three Doctors earlier on, there's, even though the first Doctor is the youngest Doctor, all the other Doctors defer to him as a source of wisdom. And it's sort of like, thinking back to myself, it's almost like me now going to my 10-year-old self for advice. Because there's that much time between them. And, the fifth Doctor has had hundreds of years more of life experience than the first Doctor did, but they still defer to him as this, he's the original, he's the source of all wisdom, he's the one we listen to. And it's the first Doctor that worked out Rassilon's plan as well. So it's quite interesting how he's seen as this, wow, the godlike one, the oracle.
yeah, and it was gorgeous to see. I mean, even if it was a different actor, to see the sparring and the interplay between the first three Doctors pick up immediately from where it left off in the Three Doctors. And again, I'm thinking of it retrospectively, but it could almost have been the following week, the way they just come in. You again, let's have a bit of back and forth. And obviously John and Patrick became, I don't know if they were at that time, but they became really, really close friends. And it's just so obvious that everybody in this is clearly having the time of their lives. They all love it. It can't have been fun, I suppose, filming in the freezing cold hills and the pouring rain, but you don't let it affect the performance. Everyone's clearly having a lovely, lovely time, apart from perhaps John and Anthony falling out, which we perhaps won't talk about. But the unwise request of notes for performances.
What about you, Paul? What did you think of Hurndall?
Well, because we hadn't seen a lot of Hartnell really by that stage. I'd only seen really the repeat of An Unearthly Child. I'd seen photos, I'd read, and I'd had the paperbacks and the. But it didn't really detract from it. I think you just had to accept it, really, because William Hartnell had died in 1975, so they had to find a way around it. I suppose the Robert Holmes idea would have been quite interesting. It would have explained why he didn't look quite the same, But I think in the event it didn't really detract from it. And I like the scene, the way he holds his lapels, and that scene with the Dalek, actually, I think is very kind of is very, very reminiscent of the 60s. I thought that sort of transported us back to Skaro, and it kind of did have a great atmosphere to it. I think he does a very good job. Which is interesting nowadays, of course. We have David Bradley playing William Hartnell and the First Doctor, and we're sort of used to it now, really. Of having another actor playing the part. So yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? Because of all of them,
but nobody can play my part.
Oh, indeed, absolutely not. But you can't imagine any of the other Doctors being recast like that. It's noticeable, isn't it? There's no attempt to recast Pat Trout and John Pertwee, and nor should there be. It's become the accepted norm, I suppose, with the First Doctor, possibly because it was so long ago, I don't know, or because it's happened twice now, so we just let it be. But I can't imagine ever switching on and finding someone trying to do their best Pat Troughton take. I'm not even sure how that will go down there.
Although on the big finishes, of course, they're all recasting, aren't they? You have Michael Troughton playing the part, Fraser Hines playing the part, and John Pertwee. You've got Tim Treloar. Although somebody should ask, really. I must say, I've had the time of my lives. So, and Tom, of course, John Culshaw's doing a brilliant version of Tom. Yes, I'm usually invited to all sorts of occasions these days. And even people are doing Peter Capaldi and David Tennant and Matt Smith.
young actor called Jake Dudman play. He does a better Matt Smith than Matt Smith. as you probably long-time listeners probably, he's not my favourite Doctor by a long mile. Is Matt Smith, but Dudman brings a warmth that I don't know. I can't explain it, but there's a warmth in Dudman's performance that seems to be lacking in Matt Smith's. Don't know. I don't know what it is, but he does a very good 10 and 12 as well.
I'm still holding out. No disrespect at all to any of those voice actors. They're all brilliant, but I think we're all all hoping that one day we'll click on the Big Finish Twitter feed and see, oh, yeah, they got Peter back, they've got Matt back, and Jodie back. It'll be fantastic one day in the future.
Yeah, I would like to hope so. I mean, we're going off topic a bit, but Big Finish has just done the 60th anniversary series of stories. They want some future. And surprisingly, the very last episode is a year to now, a Coda episode. My thing is they might tie it up with the release of the Joe Martin ones, and perhaps they've got, perhaps they have Jodie Whittaker or something to finish it off. I genuinely don't know. But anyway, we're straying off topic a bit.
Yes, indeed.
It's still on anniversaries, but I'm straying off topic just a little. So yeah, we've covered sort of Hurndall, but yeah, the lack of Tom Baker. Have you got any? Why, gentlemen, did Tom Baker? Why did he decline to appear? Is there a sort of a factual reason that's been given, or is it just rumor and hearsay?
Well, on the special features of the Five Doctors, you can see the correspondence actually between Tom and JNT. And there's quite a lengthy correspondence between them, and Tom is very keen on the idea initially, and then he comes back and says, unfortunately, I don't think I want to participate, but don't underestimate my affection for the program. I think he, I can imagine he felt that whether it was because he had just left the part, and that he found it difficult going back, actually. And maybe he just felt, yes, other doctors. Who are these people? Maybe there was a little bit of ego there, I don't know. But had he appeared, I think it would have been better had he had his own section in it, and which is initially what we had, really, with Sharda, because nobody had seen it. It hadn't been broadcast. So it felt like a new scene. It felt like a new adventure. Christopher Smart, Judge Jeffries, all the greatest labourers in the history of Earth have worn bow ties here. It's a shame. But at least he came back for Dimensions in Time.
Well.
And of course, in the 50th, I really think you might. So that really made up for it, really, for me, being a huge Tom Baker fan, I think. But it didn't really matter at the time because we had all the paperbacks, we had all the. I think I'm not sure whether Revenge of the Cybermen had come out by then on VHS. Certainly around that time, 83, 84. My first video actually was Pyramids of Mars, which I was watching every day. So he kind of felt all present, to me anyway. Yeah. And he was actually not present on the interviews either, on that famous Nationwide sketch. Sue Lawley said, unfortunately, Tom cannot be with us. Yes, poor Tom, said John, looking rather disdainfully at the camera. So he didn't even appear he didn't even appear at the press call. Yes, as I said, I was a waxwork for most of that. So
I think Tom's given conflicting reasons over the years, and he's a very complicated chap, isn't he? I remember watching the Tom Baker video a long time back now, and he said a combination of, as you said, Paul, feeling he had not got used to the idea of not being the Doctor yet. It had only been a short time that he'd given up the role. And also, you think he freely admits now in his frailer years that he probably was possessed of a bit of ego at the time. and didn't like the idea necessarily of sharing the screen or sharing the role with other people, which is another blessing of Big Finish, that he does that all the time now. It's beautiful that he gets to interact with other doctors. You'd have to think, I suppose, the atmosphere on set wouldn't have been as good as it apparently was if John and Tom were having to share the screen together. I don't think those two ever really got on, did they? Because I think Peter Davison said it in an interview in Doctor Who magazine a while back. He said they both thought of themselves as the archetypal Doctor, and John as the action man, as it were, and Tom as the iconic figure. So I suppose you got to imagine you stuck them all together in a small hotel room on location for 3 weeks or whatever. The atmosphere wouldn't have been tremendous. It's a shame, but it worked out well. And yeah, and again, I think to fans of my age, it just helped establish Tom as this mythical figure. Never came out. The shows were never repeated, not until that 92 or whatever it was, before I saw a repeat on TV. You only had these occasional VHSs, Pyramids of Mars or Revenge of the Cybermen, and that was it. Tom was the one who never came back, so he was this mythical figure, which does then make his eventual returns all the more enjoyable. So yeah, it was a shame. He was missed. These things happen, and the stories will evolve accordingly. And yeah, it just worked out well. It worked out well for me.
So we've talked a lot about the Doctors. We'll talk a bit about the villains now. Anthony Ainley's Master. I was watching him again in preparation yesterday. Now, his character's got an annoying arrogance that doesn't seem earned in the same way as Delgado. Delgado had a grandeur to him, a sort of like a Raffles, like a gentleman thief, I don't know. But Ainley, the way he plays it, he's like a petulant bully. It's sort of when he comes in to the Time Lord's council, he goes, "I may be seated," after sitting down. He just reminds me of sort of the kid in school would be like the rich kid who was snide with everyone else, but sort of hid behind, got everyone else to fight their battles for him. He comes across as the nastiest, slimiest, unlikable person. But on the other hand, he's really entertaining. He's incredible.
He has some great lines in this.
He's got brilliant lines in it.
I love what makes you think I want your forgiveness? It's fantastic.
Funny enough,
Ainley gets a lot of stick for being high camp and over the top, which again I think a lot of it was how he was directed. Next to Survival, which I think everybody kind of says was his finest performance as the Master, and I agree. I think it was brilliant. I think this is, next to that, his best performance as the Master, because he doesn't ever take it over the edge. He's nice. It's almost underplayed a bit at the start. He's got all those lovely, smarmy, sneering facial expressions. He's absolutely loving the Time Lord High Council squirming, having to come to him, having to beg him to help find the Doctor. And I think that fantastic reaction shot of, "What do you want me to do? Rescue the Doctor?" What? It's perfect. He great lines. He delivers them with aplomb. He's only right at the very end. He goes a little bit pantomime when he's threatening everyone with his tissue compression eliminator. But other than that, I think it's a perfectly pitched performance. A shame he and John didn't get on, but there you go. Can imagine being a prickly guy to work with sometimes.
Well, I just love the way John Pertwee screeches to a halt in Bessie, going, "No, it couldn't be. Jumping to hurt the cat, it really is you.
Yeah.
What's happened this time? Another regeneration? Not exactly." Yes. And he looks at the seal of the High Council. "Yes, fourth, no doubt. I'll return it at the first opportunity." It's a first as well, because John, the third Doctor meeting the Master again, is one of the many firsts in this. It's like the way he meets the Cybermen for the first time. They don't get tired, that's why not, and they never give up. And that was a really good first. I thought, yeah.
Mm.
And a nice touch as well, because he never met the Cybermen in the original run.
Yeah, indeed. Probably Terence doing that on purpose again. But yeah,
Well,
I think it was great, great, and it was lovely that even though it's a different actor, and we know how close John was to Roger Delgado, and whatever off-screen tensions there were, I think that scene that you mentioned there is absolutely beautifully played by both of them. Really, really is played well. You know, look, I'm here to help you. Just accept it. I'm here to help you. No, whatever you do, I'll never believe it. These thunderbolts are everywhere. It's. I don't know where he got his cloak from. That's the one gripe about that scene. He didn't teleport into the death zone wearing a cloak, but I'll figure that one out one day. But it's perfectly pitched and perfectly played. It's beautifully done.
He probably picked the cloak up from one of the other Time Lords that was sent before him. We'll take it as that.
Yeah. Yes.
And difference in sort of performances between Ainley and Delgado. I can never ever imagine the brig decking Delgado. As he just wouldn't have happened. Delgado would have grabbed hold of his fist and twisted him, but Ainley, this beautifully arched sort of almost, not quite, but almost sort of Batman 67 level of performance he was giving. He was so snide and irritated. He sort of, just decking brig.
Yeah. Well, look, again, the brig recognises him as the master without anyone telling him that's who he is. Here he is. He's got the beard. He's dressed in black, and we know who this guy is.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great. And a good, not a twist, but it's good that he wasn't the baddie, and he kind of expects the master to be the baddie. You kind of, with the Doctor on that one, thinking it's going to be him. But Barusa, yeah, another Barusa. He regenerates quite frequently, doesn't he? But yeah, good. What do you reckon to him? I don't want to compare him to the others, but what do you reckon to Barusa's performance in this?
I mean, I obviously didn't work it out when I was 12, 13 years old when I first saw it. Watching it yesterday, there's three people it can possibly be. It's not going to be the Castellan, who gives one of the best lines ever in Doctor Who.
Yes.
Who's going to say it? Which of you gentlemen are going to say it? Or do you both want to say it together?
No, I'm handing the floor over to that.
Paul?
No, not the mind probe.
Good.
Is that right?
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah. So it's obviously not the Castellan. He's the scapegoat. It's not going to be Dinah Sheridan's character, Chancellor Flavia, because she's friendly with the Doctor. The only person it can be is President Barusa. So it's not really much of a whodunit. It's how long before it's revealed. But
it's some lovely touches in that performance, though. I was watching it last night as well, and where the Doctor's saying, "I need to go back." Just after the Castellan's been killed after his mind probe outburst, the Doctor, I need to go back to my other selves. And Bruce is there, and it's like you can feel the tension, you can feel the stress. This guy is really at the end of his tether. He's just holding his head and goes, "Look, I'm sure your other selves will be fine. All right, just leave." I think it's a lovely little depth touch that you get from those really experienced character actors, particularly of that generation. A really sweet touch. Much harder interpretation. It has to be because he's the villain now. But you used to Barusa as being the stern headmaster type, and now throughout everybody who's played him, and now he's tipped over the edge. Now I'm not just content being a headmaster. I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to be in charge of everything forever because I'm the only one who can be. It's subtly, it's not particularly subtly written, but it's very subtly portrayed in that performance. And beautiful piece of, I suppose, poish comeuppance at the end with his final fate. A lovely performance, I thought.
What do you think, Paul?
Well, I suppose it's a progression of the character. It makes it more interesting. It's like a moment on the Tom Baker years talking about John Arnott playing Barusa. You're saying, "Oh, I'm so boring. I'm such a boring actor. I've always played boring parts." And Tom said, "Well, no, I didn't think it was boring at all. I thought it was wonderful." You know, so it was very, very difficult to know what to do with a character like that. Really. And you've got Leonard Sachs playing it in Arkham Infinity as a sort of a genial character. You wouldn't expect him to take over Time Lord Society. So I think it's a sort of a nice character development, really. And the comeuppance is really good. You know, the whole idea of him seeking immortality and being encased, calcified, or petrified, I suppose, really, in the tomb of Rassilon. I think that's a really nice twist, really good ending to that. And it's quite scary as well. You know, you see all the past Time Lords coming to life temporarily and being captured for all eternity. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's sort of gave an ending to the character, really.
Just trying to his name's Philip Latham, isn't it?
Yeah.
Philip. I'll come in there. So yeah, Philip Latham as Bruiser. Just like very, very subtle performance. I mean, when he's handling all the artifacts, when the Doctor finally plays the harp of Rassilon and you know opens the secret door to his chamber where he's been controlling everything from, and he's just handling the artifacts like you know. The coronet of Rassilon and the rod of Rassilon. Yeah. He's handling all of that, and he's just very, very almost weary. He says, "Oh, it's just a game within a game."
Yeah,
and there's almost like not even a world weariness, a universe weariness. This man is that possibly thousands of years old and has seen empires come and go, and he's almost resigned in a funny way. He's almost resigned to his fate because he's got nothing else left to do. In a funny way, he's quite a tragic character. And I think if he'd have gone the Ainley route and had a bombastic supervillain performance, it wouldn't have worked. But with this sort of almost quiet, tired old man, it's really, really effective.
It's a nice sort of continuation of the theme of Gallifrey being a corrupt society or potentially corrupt society. You know, he is corrupted by power. You know, and perhaps even what happened to Rassilon himself. You know, it's kind of hinted at in the story that Rassilon wasn't a completely benign character. You know, there are rumors to the contrary. You know, that Rassilon was a corrupt Time Lord, and they walled him up in the tomb of Rassilon. You know, and so yeah, it's just a nice touch that there's something going on behind the scenes. You know, that Time Lord society is not all peaches and cream. You know.
So back to you, James.
No, I was just going to about Philip Latham as an actor. The other things you've mentioned, I suppose the deftness of touch. He played a kind of not a similar role, but he played in a very similar way. You'll have seen it. One of the old Dracula films from Hammer Studios. I think he was in Dracula, Prince of Darkness when he played a character called Clove, who was the manservant who resurrects Dracula. Very different character, but it's just Philip Latham's style. It's very, very fit, not physical as as in pratfalls and career about the place, but everything is a very delicate touch. He is very, very gentle and deliberate in his movements. And yeah, it was just to carry on from that point before. I think that's a quality he very much brings to this role.
And I didn't know this at the time about this. I think Paul talked about target novelization earlier, but didn't the target novelization of this leak before the episode aired on the TV? You could buy it in W.H. Smith's a couple of days before or something.
Yes, it did. And I think it's one of the very few stories that have had to sort of like come out at about the same time. I think the only other one would have been Destiny of the Daleks, which came out not long after it was broadcast.
And just so you get your gentlemen's ideas on this, just a little bit of in-universe continuity, really. So in School Reunion, Sarah Jane doesn't seem to remember meeting the Fifth Doctor. I can't. Doesn't she say there's something? I was doing the maths. It's like she still thinks the last time she saw him was Tom Baker's Doctor. So yeah, potentially they could have all had their memories wiped to this.
Yeah, I think that's the whole timelines out of sync thing, isn't it? Yeah. They tried to retroactively justify it with, because it's always been quite inconsistent how much of it do they remember and how much don't they? Because if presumably the same guy's been through the same adventure 5 times, he would have had a pretty good idea by the time he's Peter Davison that of what's going on. So the timelines are out of sync, and you can't retain the events. But then you have Time Crash, where the 10th Doctor saves the day by remembering what the 5th Doctor did, and vice versa. But hey,
they can remember when the plot needs them to remember. But
exactly
also,
that, when the script needs them to.
Yeah, but also on a character point of view, from an in-universe character point of view, the Brig and the Third Doctor don't even acknowledge each other. But then again, for the Third Doctor, he's probably only seen the Brig 10 minutes before he's gone out in his car. But the Brig probably won't see the Third Doctor for, what, 8-9 years?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, logistically, there's only a very small window. You imagine where it could have been, the Third Doctor could have been taken out of his time stream then. So, yeah, sometime between Invasion of the Dinosaurs and Planet of the Spiders, which doesn't leave a lot of room. So, yeah, he would have just been, excuse me, yeah, I only saw you yesterday kind of thing with him. But that is one regret, I think, and it was just with the scheduling conflicts of the actors. I love the interaction between Second Doctor and the Brig. I think it's brilliant. Pat Troughton and Nicholas Courtney work really well together. But there's a big chunk of me that would have loved to have seen the Third Doctor and the Brigadier go through the Death Cell together. Particularly the Brigadier as an old man, or an older man. Retired, and I don't want to be doing this shit anymore. just let me go and have my whiskey in the office where I was supposed to be. So that is a little bit of a regret. But it's a minor quibble, and it was unavoidable. So it is what it is.
So we're going to do, as we do on these things, we're going to score it out of 10. So we'll go guests first, and we'll go alphabetical order. So James first. What would you score the 5 Doctors?
Don't. I want to go 8. 8 out of 10. It's so very nearly perfect.
Paul?
Yeah, I think I'd say 8, 8.5. Yeah, I think it's a good anniversary story. It does what it says on the tin, and I think everybody gives it their all.
And Ash, you only watched
including the waxwork.
What would you give it, Ash?
8, I think. I mean, there's a bit of something for everyone there, really, isn't there? In terms of, I mean, they've been done. Yeah, been done before, the 3 Doctors. But I think everyone put a good little turn in there. Lots of characters turned up in it, didn't they? Albeit for maybe only a second or two here and there. And enjoyable and down the road. And yeah. I mean, it would probably be better with some voiceovers by Paul, I think, but can't have everything, can we?
And I'm going to give it a 9 because there's very rarely that I can put something on I've seen, gosh knows how many times before, and basically talk along to it like karaoke, and still enjoy it. And I think it gets better with every viewing because you see more every time you watch it. I've always said I didn't appreciate Davison at the time. I did a run through of Doctor Who from the beginning over about 18 months to 2 years. We finished last January. And from watching it, Davison's come up as my favourite Doctor from the rewatch of it. Now, when Flavia offered him the part of the President at the end, I think Davison is the only Doctor that probably would have accepted that because he's such a reluctant hero. And he plays it like a reluctant hero. I don't think he likes the sort of swashbuckling life that his previous selves have got into. It's like the way he's outwitted by the Cybermen, where in Earthshock, where he says about having had the pleasure of eating a well-cooked meal, and they say, well, emotions kill her, and he's got no answer to it. So he's sort of almost paralysed by his own morality. And I really think Davison's life would be a lot happier had he just been a librarian on Gallifrey and let someone else have the adventures. But in this, he's pretty much, he sort of almost gets his verve back in this. It's like, no, actually, this is an easy get out. I could do it, but I don't want to do that. I'd be letting my previous selves down. I'd be letting the universe down. Let's get out there. Let's grab the universe by the scruff of his neck. Let's carry on having the adventures. So again, I've sort of used 50 words where I could use 1, but I'm giving it 9.
So just for the clarity, that was a 9 then, was it, Edge? Just yeah.
That was a
yeah,
9.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, fine.
Definitely
Sorry,
9 out of 10.
we all nodded off. Sorry. Well, on that bombshell, I think that's time for us to say goodbye. So it's bye from me, Ash.
Bye from me, Ed.
Bye from me.
And now, are you going to say goodbye from all of them, Paul?
Well, I think I should come back and out of retirement and just say goodbye. And also, goodbye from me. I have to say, I had the time of my life.